So, I just put ChatGPT down because that's what people are interested in. Actually, it's a bit about ChatGPT. I didn't lie, but it is not only about that. It's actually mostly about how we've built something to integrate this technology into government services. And this is kind of very early days now, and because I am a user-centered designer, so we just heard a lot about user-centered design, I am going to talk about how we involve users in this whole process, because for us, this is the key to everything. Us is Leap. We are a company that has been around for about 15 years now, am I right? More, he says more. We do web applications, so anything that kind of runs in a browser, lots of custom applications, but also lots of websites. Currently working on the website for Basel-Stadt, for example, for the canton. So next year, if you get annoyed by some government services online, come to me, it's probably my fault. And what we've done now is we've been experimenting with, we're talking a lot about how to look for information, right? There's lots of stuff we need to do when it comes to government services. Lots of things we are forced to do, because we just have to. We have to get certain documents, we have to submit our taxes, there's lots of stuff we just don't have a choice. And what we're what we're doing at the moment is we're looking at, can actually chat help us, and how can chat help us? And what we've done is we've taken several government websites. So we've taken the Basel-Stadt, the canton, we've taken Zurich, the city website, we've taken Lausanne, we've actually gone a bit further, we've also taken the Zurich Zoo, just as a little experiment. And what we've done is we've basically built our own repository. I'm not going to go into the technical details, there's a lot of it that you can read up on our blog if you're interested in how exactly we built it. It's not rocket science, it's actually fairly simple. And what we've done is we've basically built our own little UI where you can then just ask a question specifically, basically to that city or to that, in this case it could be Basel-Stadt. Or what we have done now is we've done it for Zurich and we've user tested it. So we haven't just built it, but we actually then went out and got a whole bunch of people living in Zurich to test it out. And what we're also doing is we constantly watch what people are actually entering in this box. And this is so interesting. It's actually, sometimes when I need a bit of downtime, I just go in and read a bit what people are asking. It's very entertaining. And in this user test, we found out a few things that I would love to share with you today. So that's actually what this is about. First of all, prompt engineering. The first thing I learned that really, really surprised me is that, and I said, unlike you, as in unlike all of us who know what chat is and that you need to answer a full question, most of our users actually just entered keywords. So they treated it the same as a search. As you would treat a search, like a Google search, an internal search in a website, they just entered individual keywords. And if you look at the example here, so they were asked, or if the question is to register my dog, or to know how much it costs to register my dog, or where can I register my dog, then you can already imagine how different the answer is going to be if you type in the first thing as opposed to if you type in the second thing. So it was really interesting for me to learn that once again we're at this stage where we just assume everyone knows how to use this technology, right? We think, oh, even school kids learn how to prompt engineer, how hard can it be? They will all learn. But it's really interesting to see that mental model that people have around, I've learned this is a search box, so I need to be careful with what I put in, and that this actually often led to very bad results. Now the next thing we looked at is that usually registering a dog is not a big deal, right? Like you can usually Google it, or even on a fairly poorly done government website, you're probably going to find it. But what about more complicated questions? And what we see, these are all real prompts that people give. This is not invented, this is real stuff that people were trying to do with this system. And you can already see how this is now getting into much more interesting territory, right? So you can already imagine a Google search with this is not going to lead, probably not going to lead you to the result, and this is where we think that our chat solution can actually really add value to a government website. And so we started to kind of dissect a bit what it means and what happens when we actually enter these type of prompts. And the first conclusion that we had is that, unfortunately, a lot of times our content is not there yet. So while we have the system in place, and technically it's all possible, it actually fails on the content side. And a lot of times, government content editors are not very good at making things explicit and actually writing things down. For example, one thing that chat really loves is if you say, for this, you don't need a permit. If you explicitly say, you don't need a permit for this, or you are not required to do this, or a lot of these negative statements are actually missing from the content. And so sometimes when we ask ChatGPT or a chatbot how to do something, we actually don't get the answer because it's just not written in that language, and the machine can still not infer it based on the content that is there. So that is something definitely to work on, and that we work on obviously with our clients now. And to work on this, we really need to differentiate between two types of questions that we ask a chatbot. And there is the first question that is around, how does this actually work? So if we go back to the questions we just had before, around like, or can I don't know, how do I get a Swiss citizenship, for example, is a very famous one that we get all the time. Then a lot of times, first it really is about what is the process? So it's these more complex questions around what do I actually have to do, what's required, as opposed to questions that have a very clear right and wrong answer. So we really have to differentiate between these two types of questions, and what we also have to do is we have to differentiate between what happens if the answer is wrong. If the answer is wrong around what I put in my compost, it's not great for the environment, but no babies are probably going to die. But what if the answer is wrong for something much more important, like what is the law around wearing my helmet? I could get fined, right? And so there are a lot of places where we need to be very aware around how important is it actually to get this right. And we need to really differentiate between the moments where it's like, hey, we cannot be wrong on this, and the moments where it's like, yeah, like let's not deal with it too much. So this is something we look into, and when we look into this, we also look into kind of the user journey through a government request. A lot of times the first step of the journey is actually, I want to learn the basics. So coming back to this question, like around Swiss citizenship, what you first want to know is this complicated? How big a deal is it? How much time will I need to invest? Oh, I need 7 million documents, or I need all of this extra stuff, or is it super easy? So all these things you need to do in kind of, and we call that kind of the first step of the journey. And sometimes there are weeks, sometimes days, sometimes weeks, sometimes months, to the next step of the journey, which is, I'm actually going to do this task now. And obviously citizenship is a bit of a bigger decision even to do, but you can boil this down also, or you can actually transfer this also to simpler questions around, should I get my driver's license? Or should I get a driver's license? Should I get a motorbike license? Okay, how complicated? Again, it's that first thing around the basics. What do I actually have to do in order to get a motorbike license? And then you go through, and then potentially you do the task of actually applying much further on. And that's important for us, because when we come back to the chat, a lot of times for the first thing, the chat answer is enough, right? Like, okay, I get the basics, it's all okay, I know the process, oh yeah, that looks complicated, or that's actually not that difficult, cool, I might do this. Whereas the second one, the chat answer in our cases, when we looked at this, was never enough. For this, people wanted to then go to the source. Not just because they needed the form to fill in, but also because they then actually wanted all the details, and they wanted to make sure it comes from the right source. And so when we built this, what we did is, or what we saw a lot is that our answer always has a link to the source document in it. So the way we built it is, it gives you the answer in natural language, but it always adds the links. It basically gives you all the sources to where your answer comes from. And all users for these type of tasks then actually went to the source. So none of them just took the chat answer as the answer, only if it's that first bit, oh yeah, how does it work, how complicated is it? When they actually wanted to do it, they all went to the source, because they wanted to know the details, they wanted to have the official information. It wasn't enough for them like this. And so the links still help navigate to the right pages, even for things that are incomplete. So we also saw a lot of cases where people asked a question, the chatbot didn't know the answer. It said, oh, sorry, can't really tell you. I know a bit, something about compost. And then people went to that link 1, or that link, where the compost rules or compost guidance was given. And so they all then kind of followed the source. And so for us, especially for me who builds a lot of information architectures, it's super interesting to see this, because it's actually a new way of getting to their answer. So what we're up to now is that we need, this is government, so we need quality control, very, very important. We need to make sure that what's up there is right. The other thing is we're now formulating tips for content writers. That's another bit around like helping them to create content that a chatbot can understand really well and can work with better. And we're experimenting and testing it with different clients and obviously with different users. So the idea is actually to kind of then have these feedback loops around what do people actually enter. Okay, now our pros within the government are assessing the answers. Is that a good answer or not? Is it important that it is a good answer? And then that we can update content based on this. Yeah, that's it. So if you want to have a look at it, there's a Basel version for it too, so you can try it out. And then, yeah.
Not sure if you're allowed to ask questions.
I think we do it in the end, right?
We will have questions at the end. Okay, thank you. Yes, we will have questions at the end, so keep it in your mind. And now, thank you very much, Angie, for this interesting talk.